it's Emma here again with another session on mature learning. Today we're going to be talking about student finance with Shannon from Shaping Futures. So I will hand over the reins to her and let her get on with it.
Thank you, Emma. Hi everyone. Yeah, so my name's Shannon. I work for Shaping Futures. If you haven't heard of us before, we're part of the UniConnect network. So we're one of 29 different partnerships all over the country. Shaping Futures works specifically in the Merseyside region, and we help people with the application to university process. So helping to raise attainment and demystify a lot of the university application process. So today we're going to talk about student finance. I'm going to cover quite a few different bits and bobs. So I'm going to start off with the loans that are available when you go to university, how it all works, so the application process, the repayment process, all those kind of things. We're also going to talk about the other funding available, so bursaries, scholarships, other support you can get from universities, and then finally when and how to apply for student finance. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of student loan myth busting. I think for some people, the term student loan can be quite off-putting when they're going to university, because it does sound like you're going to be in debt, and that isn't the case at all. So it's a lot less like a debt and more like a tax when you go to university. There's no debt collectors, no impact on your credit score, nothing like that. What actually happens is you pay to go to university, you take out a loan to cover that cost, and then when you're eventually earning an income, what you pay back is dependent on that income. So it comes out in the same way as your pension, your national insurance contributions, your tax, everything else. So it's quite similar to that. If you do want to find out a little bit more about how it works in that sense, Martin Lewis does some really good informational videos. So he's called the Money Saving Expert, and he talks quite passionately about student finance and getting the word student loan changed to student tax, because he thinks it's quite a misleading term. So I would recommend you researching that if you are interested in finding out a little bit more about that. So there are two types of student loan you can apply for. So you've got the maintenance loan and the tuition fee loan. You don't have to take either of these. You can take one or the other, you can take both, whatever your personal circumstances lend themselves to. The majority of people will take both loans, but equally you don't feel obliged to if you don't need to. So the maintenance loan pays for your cost of living. So everything you can think of, from accommodation to food, your travel expenses, any things that you need for your course, like your books, equipment, anything like that, is all paid for by your maintenance loan. So this money goes directly to yourself. So it will go into your bank account in 3 different installments throughout the academic year. And it's really important that you budget to make this last, because it can be quite nice in September when you've just started your course and you get quite a lot of money going to your bank account. So it's really important not to go on a little shopping spree, which a lot of people do tend to do. But yeah, so it's really important to make that money last throughout the academic year and make sure that it does cover all the costs that you have from university. So you do get different amounts depending on your personal circumstances. So if you choose to live at home whilst you're studying, you can expect to get up to about £7,700 a year. If you choose to live away from home at university, so for example, if you're from Liverpool and you decide to travel to York and you live in university accommodation, you can expect to get up to £9,000. And you get a little bit more if you choose to go and live in London, just because of the higher living costs in London itself. So if you do move away to London, you can get up to £12,000. And then finally, if you are living or studying abroad for part of your course, you get a little bit more again, so up to £10,000 to cover the cost of that as well. Now, tuition fee loans are slightly different. So this money goes straight to your university from student finance. So unfortunately, you never get to see this money in your bank account. It is quite a big figure, so it'd be quite overwhelming, I think, if that ended up in your bank account. So most universities charge £9,250 per year for their courses. Hopefully that's not a shock to you. I think it's quite a well-known figure these days. Not every university will charge that amount, but the vast majority do. So the money from tuition fees goes straight to the university, never gets into your bank account at any point. So the maintenance loans are means tested, and what that means is it's dependent on your situation. So you'll probably notice from my previous slide, I always said the amount you get is up to 7,000, up to 9,000. And that is because it depends on your household income. So if you're living with your parents or a partner, it depends on how much they earn, depends how much you get essentially. So the higher they earn, the less money you're entitled to. You also might get additional funding depending on your personal circumstances. So for example, if you're a young person who's estranged from their family or a care leaver, you'll be entitled to more student finance than another person. And equally, like I mentioned before, if you're living away from home or studying in London, you'll get a little bit more money as well. So there are a few different eligibility requirements if you are going to apply for student finance. And the most important one is that you need settled status within the UK, and you need to have been living in the UK for at least 3 years before starting your course. So that's really important. There's lots of information about this online on the Student Finance England website. So if you need to check any of this information or double check that you're eligible, please do go and have a look on there. There's people you can speak to just to make sure that you are eligible for student finance. If you might be interested in getting a broad idea of how much you'll be entitled to as well, the government have a really good student finance calculator available. So you can go online, you can type in your estimated household income if you know it. So if you have a rough idea of how much your household earns each year, type that into the calculator and it will give you an idea of what you're entitled to when you're studying at university. And that might be quite useful if you are thinking ahead about budgeting, if you're deciding if you can afford to go to university. This will be a really helpful tool for helping you make those big decisions. So I would recommend using that if it's available to you. Okay, so next up we've got the repayment process. I know this can be quite a thing that some people worry about quite a lot when they are looking at going to university. So I think it's really important to kind of demystify this process and explain how it works. So I'll try and do that the best I can, but I'll also signpost to other places where you can find out a bit more information if you are interested. So the most important thing to remember is what I kind of started explaining at the top of this presentation. What you pay back completely depends on your salary when you leave university. So you don't start paying back until you're earning over £26,575 per year. And then you only start paying back 9% of earnings over that threshold. So it's quite a high threshold really. Even when you first graduate, it might take you a few years to get to the point of earning that much money. So you might find that upon graduating, you don't pay anything back for the first couple of years, and then you might start to pay little instalments back after that. It's important to note as well that if you ever drop below that threshold, or if you ever stop earning a wage, you will stop repaying. So it's not a case that once you start paying back, you're paying back forever. It is really fair, so that as soon as you drop below that threshold, or if for whatever reason you're out of work for a short period, you don't have to pay any student loan back during that time. The payments are taken off of your wage like a tax, so you never have to do any calculations, thank goodness, because I would struggle with that, I think. So it's all taken automatically, just like your national insurance, your pension, everything else is deducted before it gets into your bank account. It's exactly the same with student loan, so no complicated 9% calculations needed, which is very good news for me. It's also important to note that the threshold does change. So every April, tends to go up by about £500 at a time. So it does keep steadily increasing. So it might be that one year you start paying back your student loan because you're at the threshold, but then the next April, the threshold might increase and therefore you will have to stop paying because you're not above it. So it's good to know that you're not always going to be paying back that money either. So if you're a visual learner like myself, it's quite good to see what this actually looks like in terms of salary and how much you'll actually be paying, because 9% doesn't mean very much to me. So hopefully this little visual will help you a little bit. So as I mentioned before, the threshold at the moment is £26,575. So if you're earning that amount or anything under it, you won't be paying anything back each month. When you do start to earn over the threshold, so for example, if you're earning £28,000, you will start have to repaying a little bit. So at the start, you might just be paying back about £10 a month. And then as your salary increases, so does your monthly repayment. So the top threshold here, we've got if you're earning £40,000 a year, you'll be paying back about £100 a month. So it's not a huge amount, it is affordable, and it's very fair how it's kind of in line with your salary as well. I always think I pay about £30 a month for my phone contract, I think. And if I'm willing to pay for that, I think I'm definitely willing to pay less for my education, because it has helped me get a better earning job and more life chances than my mobile phone ever has. And I pay a lot less for my university experience than I have for my mobile phone. So you might have something similar in your life that you kind of think the same way about. Some people stop at coffee shops or go out for a meal once a month, and it is similar to that cost really. So yeah, try and think about it in that way. It really helps. The best thing about the whole process of student finance is that after 30 years, all remaining debt is wiped. So you might get to the point 30 years after graduating, you've never earned over the threshold and you never have to pay a penny back, and it will just completely be wiped off. You might have started making a bit of a dent in your student finance loan. You might have paid back £100 or £1,000. Doesn't matter, it still gets wiped off. Realistically, this means that not a lot of people will actually pay off their student debt. Probably people that earn quite a lot of money might get closer to paying it off, but certainly for the people that are kind of on middle management wages, if you're becoming a teacher or a healthcare professional, it's probably unlikely that you'll ever be paying off your student debt. And that's just the case that it is. It doesn't mean anything, doesn't reflect badly on you or anyone else. It's just the way it is, and I think it's quite a good deal really. I'm definitely glad that the student loan isn't following me around for the rest of my life. I've only got to worry about it for a few more years. But yeah, that's normally quite a reassuring fact for people to know. Okay, so let's look at additional funding then and how you can top up that student loan to help you during your time at university. So there's lots of financial support available at university and during the application process. So one thing I always like to speak about is scholarships. So these are offered from individual universities. They will differ between universities in terms of what is awarded, what kind of achievements they celebrate and how much money you're entitled to. But just an example, you might get a scholarship if you've done particularly well academically. So if you've got really high grades, you might get rewarded by your university and given some extra money or support at university. If you have done something particularly big achievement, like in sports or the creative arts, again, you might get rewarded for that. When I was at university, I actually got a scholarship for volunteering work. So I was awarded £2,000 in my first year for volunteering that I'd done prior to university and then during my first year as well. So there's loads and loads of different reasons you might get a scholarship, and it is a massive help when you're at university to get that extra funding. So if you think that you might be eligible for one, I definitely recommend that you go and have a look at university websites and see if you're able to apply, because it is a huge help to have that financial support when you go to university. Bursaries are slightly different. So this might be extra funding or support depending on your circumstances. So for example, if you are a care leaver, if you have dependents, so children or other people that you care for, there's lots of different reasons that you might get a bursary. So again, have a look on university websites and see if there is any extra support available to you, because it can really help when you're at university just to have a bit of extra financial support or physical support with things that you're facing as well. Additional support is available for lots of different reasons again. So probably the most recognisable is Disabled Students Allowance. So if you have got a disability or any additional needs, you might be entitled to support from the university and from Student Finance England. So when you are doing your student finance application, which I'll speak you through in a moment, there is a little box to tick if you have a disability, and that will help you to be contacted by Disabled Students Allowance to start your application with them separately to get a bit of extra support. Support from them can look really different. So it might be assistive technology. So they might help you with any kind of needs that you have to help you learn as well as other people in your class. So it might be things like Dragon software, which is a text-to-speech software. So to save you reading textbooks, it will read it back to you from the computer. Or if you are writing an essay, you can dictate it to the computer and it will type it up for you. So that's a really useful software. And there's lots of other assistive technology like that that Disabled Students Allowance can pay for. It can also pay for non-medical helpers from your university. So if you need a bit of mentoring support or keeping on track at university, that can be arranged for you as well through Disabled Students Allowance. And additionally, if you have any additional costs because of your disability, so for example, if you need support travelling to and from university or to and from a placement, they can help with that as well. So do definitely look into that if you think you might be eligible. Additionally, you can get support from the university itself, so things like extra time and exams, any adjustments they can make on the course to help you be able to complete that course as best as you can, and that's all available as well. In terms of additional support, there's also support available for those with childcare responsibilities or any caring responsibilities, like I mentioned before. So all of that is definitely worth mentioning when you do get to university, just to find out what support is on offer and if you're eligible for any of it. As I mentioned before, with all of this, it's really important to do your research on an individual university basis. So go to the university website that you're thinking of attending, have a look which scholarships they have, which bursaries they have, and you can find out a little bit more about the funding available and if you're eligible for that funding as well. So I would really recommend you do that as early as you can so that you know what is available at each university and make sure you don't miss out on that funding as well. There's lots of other ways you can top up your student finance maintenance loan. So quite a popular one for students is some part-time work. It really depends on your circumstances if you're able to do this. There's lots of different considerations when you're looking for a part-time job, but many students find quite a flexible working pattern is good for university because it gives them lots of other benefits. Obviously the opportunity to gain work experience, develop those really important transferable skills for further work and study as well. And it's also great for time management, budgeting, and buffing up your CV a little bit as well, getting lots of different skills on there. So there's a few different things that you can think about when you go to university. You might already have a job at the moment that you want to continue. You might be able to go part-time or reduce your hours if that was necessary, but that's definitely an option when you're studying. You might prefer to get a job in retail, so maybe getting those transferable skills up, like I mentioned before, getting a job that's quite flexible around your timetable as well is really useful. Or you might choose to do something that's relevant to your course. So for example, if you're going into teacher training, you might want to volunteer in a school or do a couple of hours working with young people just to get more skills to help you when you get into the workplace. So they're all fantastic options. Lots of universities have careers advisors as well, so you can go to the career centre, speak about your options and find a job that suits you. And equally, lots of universities actually hire students to work for them as well. So there's loads of jobs on different university campuses. You could work in the library, you could work in the social space. If they have a coffee shop or a bar, you'd be able to get a job there. And equally, each university will have an outreach team which runs open days and campus events for schools. So you could volunteer to work there and get paid for talking about your university experience. That's something that I did when I was at university, and it was such a valuable thing to do. I know it's a job that Emma does at the moment as well. So it's definitely worthwhile, and it gives you so many skills and so much confidence as well, speaking in front of people. So yeah, there's definitely loads of options for working at university, and it can really benefit your university study as well, I think, because you meet lots of new people and get to meet different departments on the university itself as well. So part-time work is definitely something I'd recommend when you're at university, just to top up your student finance. There's also other ways to maximise your earnings at university. So for example, getting a student bank account is a really good option because they often offer lots of perks like reduced train travel or free cinema tickets, things like that. So that's a great thing to look into. And the most wonderful thing about university is the student discounts that you get, which I miss very much, and sometimes consider doing a master's just to get a bit more student discount in my life. But loads of different companies and shops offer student discount. So that is a good way to make your money go further whilst you're studying as well. Okay, so next up, I'm going to talk about how to apply to student finance. So the student finance application process is all done online. It is a government website, so you can go directly there, www.gov.uk/student finance. Equally, you can type student finance into Google and it should be the first thing that comes up. Applications open in February each year. You don't need a confirmed place at university or college to apply. So most people might find that by February, they've not decided exactly which course or university they're going to go on to, and that's absolutely fine. It's always best just to start your application nice and early so that it gets submitted, and you can change all that information later on. That's not as important. What's important is student finance have all your information and you get everything set up when you do go to university. So the deadline for applying to student finance is around the end of May each year. Tends to be a different date each year, but it's around the 22nd of May, and that's for new students. You will have to reapply for student finance each year. So when you're in your second and third year of your degree, you'll have to apply again. And the deadline for returning students is the end of June. So you do have a little bit longer. And university will prompt you to do that as well, because I know it's difficult to remember all of these things when you've got deadlines and placements and everything else going on. So you will get prompted to do that. Okay, so next up, I'm just going to show you a quick video which whizzes through the application process, just so you know what to expect really. And it gives you an idea of what everything's going to look like as well, just to make sure that you're on the right website, because I know it can be confusing at times. So this is how you get there via Google. So that's the kind of screen you'll see when you log in, and then you'll be creating a new account when you do log in. They'll ask you a few questions about your application, and then you'll be able to create a password. It's really important to remember your details because you will need to use them every time you log in. Just going to pause on this section. So you'll be using the blue side for your own application, so apply for student finance. You'll be using that to put all your details in, and it will ask you lots of questions, which I'll show you in a moment. You will need to get someone to support your application. So if you're living at home, this might be your parents, your partner, whoever you're living with at the moment. They will be supporting your application. You can get a friend to do it as well. but just worth bearing in mind that that needs to be done by somebody else. Okay, so next it will tell you what you need for your application. So you'll need a few different documents like your passport and national insurance number, just to make sure that you have everything you need when you're applying. You can pause your application at any point if you haven't got those documents, or if you want to come back and complete it later, you'll be able to pause it and come back and log in. It asks you quite a few questions about the type of loan you want to apply for. So just to check that you are applying for both the maintenance loan and tuition fee loan. And it will also ask you about any disability that you might have, and if you want to apply for disabled students allowance. After this, it will go through some more questions, just about yourself, about your where you want your loan paid into, so your bank details, and more information about your household income as well. So you will need that information to hand when you are doing your application as well. So I know that was a very brief video, but it's just to give you an idea of what you can expect when you do log in, and what the application process actually looks like. So after you've applied, I don't know if that video is going to work, so I'm going to skip over it subtly. After you've applied, there's a few things that Student Finance will send to you. So they will send you a letter that tells you your eligibility. So that will say how much maintenance loan you're entitled to whilst you're at university. So once you get that letter, you'll check that you're happy with that amount. You can sign it off and send it back to Student Finance. And then everything will be set up for when you do arrive at university. What happens when you do arrive at university is there's kind of an enrolment process. So you have to go, you might have to take some details with you, like your passport and things like that, just to show that it's definitely you enrolling to university. And then as soon as you have signed to say you've enrolled at that university, they will send the information straight to Student Finance, and Student Finance can send the money to your bank account. So you won't have it on the first day that you start university, because that enrolment process might take a couple of days to go through, but certainly within your first week, as long as you've applied to Student Finance on time, you'll have your money put into your bank account, and then you're ready to go. You're set for the academic year, which is good to know. But if you do have any questions about that or anything else that I've mentioned, Student Finance England have a really good YouTube channel. And I find this really useful because it just breaks everything down to do with student finance into 1 or 2 minute videos, which you can just sit and watch and understand the whole process. So there's a video on what to expect once you've applied. There's videos explaining the whole application process. So I would really recommend watching those if you're still a little bit unsure about anything that I've spoken about. There's also a dedicated zone on the students' room. So if you want to speak to someone from Student Finance, ask any questions, or maybe just talk to other students about their experience of applying for Student Finance, you're able to log on to the student room and ask any questions that you might have for them there. They've also got their own helpline and website. So there's loads of support if you do need anything when applying to university. Equally, the Shaping Futures team are really knowledgeable on all aspects of student finance, applying to university, choosing a course, all of those kind of things. So you'd be more than welcome to come onto the Shaping Futures website and talk to a member of our team. We also have student representatives from each of our partner universities. Emma is one of our wonderful students on the Access platform. So do feel free to come onto our website and chat with any of us or any of our student ambassadors about this process, because it can be quite confusing at times. So if you want to have a chat about it, then feel free to do so. Additionally, there's also Student Finance England are also on Twitter and Facebook. This is really handy for any updates. So it's really current information on Twitter and Facebook. So if you do give them a follow, you'll be able to keep up to date with deadlines and anything you need to do with your application. So I would recommend following them if you're able to. And it's also fantastic because you can really quickly send them a message. So obviously you might be able to ring them if you want to, but if you just really quickly have a question you want to ask them, you can send them a message on Twitter or Facebook, and that is being monitored Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m, and Saturday, 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. So you'll get a really quick response to any questions that you might have. So I would recommend that if you are interested. If you would like any further support with budgeting and student finance in general, we have some fantastic resources on the student finance, on the Shaping Futures website, sorry. So we have lots of different guides to applying to student finance. We've got some great videos on there as well, which explain student finance and also disabled students allowance as well. And we can just go through some facts and myths and things like that to help you with your application process and explaining student finance to anyone else it might be useful to as well. Equally, there's a great website called Black Bullion, and that is fantastic for helping with budgeting resources. So for example, if you need help sorting out your maintenance loan, you know how much you're going to be eligible for, but you'd like to make sure that you have money to last you for the whole academic term, that resource will really help you to manage your finances and work out if you do need a part-time job just to supplement your finances at all during that period as well. So I would recommend that resource. It is excellent. Thank you for listening to me today. As I mentioned before, if you have any questions at all, please do message Shaping Futures by going onto our website or our social media platforms. It'd be great to talk to you about your student finance application if you do have any questions or any other questions about the university application process. But thank you for listening. Bye.
Oh, thanks very much, Shannon. That was absolutely brilliant. And like Shannon says, feel free to go on the Shaping Futures website if you have any more questions. And I'll see you next time with our personal statement writing. Bye.